There we go. We are live. Good morning. How you doing today?
Great, Mark. How you doing?
Good. I'm real good. We're excited about this particular podcast. This is a good. This is going to be a good intro to Valentine's Day. Today is Valentine's Day, and we are going to. I can't think of a better time, right? Valentine's Day, about your love for life based on what happened to you in life. That we do a Valentine's Day podcast and talk about yourself. Okay. So I'm talking to Rich. Rich is from, we met through Robbie at the Ventura Krav Maga. We've got to know each other through Krav Maga school, and I got to watch you test privately a little bit. And so I just want to have you give a second, introduce yourself and, where you live, and we'll get right into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast. Okay.
Sounds great.
Yours.
Yep. Right. Rich Haggerty. I live in Ventura, California. Father of two girls. They're grown daughters, and I have a grandson who's 8. And I'm a pretty active guy. And we're going to talk about how I wasn't an active guy due to some pretty severe stuff. And then how I kind of dug out of the hole. And I love travel, and I love being active.
So you have a couple daughters, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And you have a grandson. So what's it like being a grandpa? I haven't, I've got married kids too, but I haven't hit the grandpa status just yet.
It's pretty cool. He lives in Dallas with my oldest daughter, and both my kids are in Texas because that's where I came from before I moved to California. And I'm actually teaching him Krav. So when I was there over Thanksgiving, I brought him some gloves, and Robert helped me get him this, get him that, and so we're trying to do some virtual stuff with him. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
that's good. Well, so I want to let's we have an hour together, so I want to dive right into what we have you here for. Okay, and let's talk about June of 2019, and why don't we get this backstory of what happened in June of 2019, and then we'll get right into some meat and potatoes of these questions. Okay.
Sure. Yep. So June 2019. At this point, I'm a really active person. Like I surf, ski, do all kinds of stuff. So a buddy of mine and I, we brought our bikes to the top of the pretty much the highest peak here in Ventura, which is about 5,000 feet up. We ended up carrying our bikes up to this peak, and then we're going to take the fire road down, mountain bikes. So we ended up literally carrying our bikes through this brush for like 5 hours. So we get up the top, and then the fog was really coming in, and that's an important aspect to think of. But the fog's really filling up the valley. And so we went down to our bikes, and we're just going to take this fire road down. And as we're rolling down the fire roads, my buddy Dave's in front of me. As we're going down this fire road, not doing anything crazy, I saw this brush on the left, not hauling butt or anything like that, just rolling down a fire road. And I saw this brush on the left, and I said, okay, my leg will just brush against that. Well, as I come up to that brush was covering a big hole, and it was too late. And so what happened was I knew instantly, like there's no avoiding, right? But if I had hit and just went over the handlebars, that would have been a really good thing. But the way the road was angled, the fire road, and again, we're up at a peak that it's kind of like this, like I was coming down, I hit the hole, and all the energy exploded upward. So I didn't just dead stop and go over. And so now I'm up in the air, and what's strange is everything blacked out. Like there's no sky, there's no sign, there's no, and it's my sympathetic nervous system just went into survival mode. And then at the last second, I could feel my head pulling me down. It felt like literally somebody was yanking me down to the ground. And I had that feeling from surfing, when you wipe out and stuff, when you're going down head first. At that second, I realized I was coming directly down on my head, and my feet were above my body. So I did this quick chin tuck. And as I did that chin tuck, I just corkscrewed into the ground. It didn't roll, it just boom, stuck. So it came down on my head, and I did at the time, I didn't think I was knocked out. As I look back and think of things, I definitely got knocked out temporarily. And I always knew my legs didn't work. Just like this was extreme. So what happened was at that point, I had extreme pain burning down the whole left side of my body. It literally felt like somebody had an electrical plug in there. And I had an emergency whistle. I'm blowing that to get my buddy who was ahead of me. And I'm on the ground, and I'm just like, I know this is like pretty bad. And he came back and found me. And what happened from there is pretty miraculous. Like I say, I'm lucky to be alive. So picture this, and then we can get on to the rest. But so picture all the miracles, I call them, to survive. So knowing I was coming down on my head, that was huge because that allowed me to do the chin tuck. I don't do the chin tuck, instant death, instant. My buddy backtracked to find me. Some people don't backtrack. They're, hey, see at the bottom. We had this protocol, like we don't leave each other, right? He came back and found me. I crashed under. We had no cell signal the entire day because we're up in the mountains in the backside of Ventura. I crashed right near the only cell tower in the entire region. And so he had to walk down probably 50 yards from where I was to get a signal. And so he called 911, and they told me, tell him not to move and all that stuff. They actually, here's an interesting thing. They had him turn the GPS on my phone to give them the coordinates. Because, yeah, we're up on a mountain somewhere in, Ventura. We didn't know the exact peak and stuff like that.
Yes.
So they said, read the coordinates. So I'm on my back. He's like, I don't know, 40, 50 yards away, and he's yelling into the phone he had on speakerphone. So I can hear all this dialogue between him and then. He stabilized me. He just had me laying with like my camelback behind my head. And they said, okay, they read the coordinates back to him. He said, yes, that's correct. And they said, okay, we're on our way. And I was like, okay, that's a really good thing. But then the fog was rolling in, and the fog's creeping up the mountain. So the helicopter showed up. They had to land on the mountain because I went and met the helicopter crew several times after, and they said they had 10 minutes to get me out. That's it, because of the fog. They can't land, they can't hoist, too much fog, they got to get out of there. So they landed. The paramedic or flight nurse, whoever it was, they came up, completely stabilized my neck. They did all the triage testing, all that other stuff. Gave me an IV right away. And then they had to carry me on the backboard down to the helicopters about 100 yards away. And they stabilized my spine, thank God. And when that happened, like I was just kind of out of it. I was awake, but I was obviously traumatized and in shock. If all those things don't happen, I die. Like every single one of them has to happen. And all that happened in 1 hour. And it had to happen sequentially. So that's kind of what happened. So what happened was they threw me in the helicopter, and they told my buddy Dave, they're like, look, we have no room for you. So he's got to go down 11 miles alone on a mountain bike that his buddy just got flown out. I can't walk.
Wow. So they couldn't bring him with and
Nope.
took you 1 hour. Yeah, it's pretty. And we're talking about L.A. Fire. Is that who came? L.A.
Ventura.
Fire Rescue.
Ventura Sheriff Air Squad.
These guys are, some of the best trained guys around, man. So,
yep. And I found out later they had a ground team kind of starting to stage a ground team in case the helicopter couldn't get me because of the fog. That would have been hours to get to me. I would have just died. Like I literally would have just died.
So you knew, though, I heard one thing that you said in there, that you knew instantly when you were laying there that your legs were not really working properly. Is that right?
Yeah. I tried sitting up because I'm on my back. I tried sitting up, and then the pain would increase. And I never once thought like, okay, stand up. Never. Just like my brain overrode that and said that will never happen. Then the burning pain on the left side, like when you feel like you have a lightning rod going down your whole left side,
Mm-hmm.
That was like scary, but I was so traumatized and in shock. I didn't really know at the time my injuries, and then I found out after, and it was like, even to this day, it's really scary, all the injuries I had and what I dodged, because it's beyond. There are no odds.
Mm-hmm. So do you do you have a PTSD sometimes where you lay? Do you feel yourself right back at that accident? Are you in that stage? Are you out of that stage?
I'm still in that stage, but it's manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just recently completed an EMT program at Ventura College. I'm now a licensed EMT. And one of the things we learned in class was neck stabilization, C-spine, putting the neck collar on, putting somebody on a backboard. So when I was in class, and I just finished this in December. When I was in class, I was the one that they had to put the neck thing on, the collar, and strap me down to the board. We did this in class because you have to
Oh
sign off
my.
on a skill.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did that, I just pictured the helicopter crew and my buddies around, and my buddy around me, because he had helped carry me to the helicopter. And then when I performed the skills task to show that I could do it on my classmates, I only saw myself. Like, I never saw their face on the backboard. I just, like, whether I was putting somebody on the backboard and stabilizing the neck, or I was the one having it happen to, in my brain, it was only me. Like, I'm looking at my classmate,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really never saw their face. I only saw a reflection of myself there.
Now, how'd that come about that you were the one that was going to be used for that?
Well, we all had to do it. So
Oh, you
everybody in
all had
class
to do it.
had
So
to demonstrate.
everybody had to be victim. Everybody had to be
Yes.
EMT.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, so we had this. So you had this. This is 2019. So we're in 2022. What was it like before the accident?
I was pretty active. I was, surfing, traveling. I'm surfing some pretty decent sized waves in Tahiti, Mexico, and things are good. I was rolling along. And then after my injuries and the crazy surgeries I went through, I found myself down at LA Neurological Center, unable to walk. And the doctors don't know if I'm ever going to be able to walk. They just don't know. It was a pretty dramatic change.
So, yeah, definitely. So they really never there was no comfort in what they said was going to happen with you. All right. So you because they were just things. So well, let's ask. So let's dive into what the injury actually was, your physical and mental state at the
Okay,
time. So where like I guess what your injuries were, what did they tell you once you could come like this? And then what was the mental state in your mind at that time when that happened?
sure. So the injury, so your neck is 7 layers, right? 7 cervical layers, and inside the vertebrae goes your spinal cord. Um, when I crashed, I ruptured all the ligaments in essentially my entire neck except for the first 2 layers and my lower back. So from C3 to T2, the ligaments ruptured. So there's nothing holding my neck stable. It's just like a piece of rope at this point. In C6, what happened was when my neck flexed like this, oops, let me go this way. When my neck flexed open, C6 pulled out. And then when it closed back up, 6 was hanging outside the column with my spinal cord in it. And so what they had to do is they had to go through the front of my neck here, surgery, and then they had to go to the back. And from the back of my skull, the base of my skull to the middle of my shoulder blades, they had to basically cut me open, fillet me, and then put in all these rods and screws to hold my neck together because the ligaments were gone. They just ruptured. And then I broke C5, I broke C6, I broke parts of C7. T1 had a crack in it. And so my best case in this is death. I mean, my worst case is death. Death. Probably next best case is I'm a quadriplegic on a ventilator, given where I broke everything. Because C4 is where the nerve goes to hold to activate your diaphragm. Okay. And I I'm using my arms. And so the injuries were extreme, the surgery was pretty extreme too. That's where I was. Now I'm in a hospital. And I don't even know the extent of my injuries at this time. I
Mm.
just know I'm in a hospital, I'm traumatized, and I can't walk. And my arms barely worked, especially the left.
Especially your left, but you had movement. Is this considered a spinal cord injury?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So there's 2
And so,
types. There's a complete where you break it,
uh huh.
and then you can actually damage it and have paralysis. And I had that to a pretty severe extent. And what the doctors told me was like, we don't know what your outcome will be because generally on an impact like this, the person doesn't survive or the outcome's pretty much known you're a quadriplegic on a ventilator.
That's pretty.
It's
So
pretty
okay,
heavy.
so what? So you're there, unable to walk, hardly able to open your arms. Let's talk about what mentally we went through in that process. What was it like to say, hey, what was it like to lay there and say, I can't walk? Was it accepting, or was your mind like, no, I'm going to walk? How did you handle that?
I was kind of neutral on it. Like I didn't know. And I told myself, you have to just keep trying. You just have to try to do something. And so I didn't know if I'd be able to walk. I didn't know if I'd be able to walk, right? I didn't know either way. And they didn't know. And they said with spinal cord injuries, it could take up to 6 months for like whatever you're going to get. That's what you get, right? So things can kind of progressively come back, but I had no clue. And so what I did was I blocked out the "you can't walk now." I just blocked it out. And
Hmm.
what I focused on is, like, okay, what can you do? So I could lay in bed and I could do this. I could squeeze my fist. So I literally just laid in bed and squeezed my fists. I'm like, I can squeeze my fists, so I can squeeze my fists. I'm gonna do that. Now, my legs would move a little, but they didn't work. That's what was weird. Like I'm like, okay, they move around a little, but they don't work. And so I didn't know. And then I decided after 5 days to quit all pain meds. Now, this is a major, major surgery, extreme pain. And I just stopped the pain meds. And the doctors and the neurosurgeons and the nurses thought I was pretty nuts for doing that. I was in pretty bad shape. But I will say this, once I quit the pain meds, I could actually start to feel the extreme pain my body went through and my brain started working better. That was key for
And
me.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, pain kind of lets us know we're still alive. That's for sure. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. I mean, I when I quit the pain meds, I literally laid in bed in tears and I just suffered for 2 days. And my daughters were there. And what I did was I broke the day up into we had a long talk. I had a meltdown when I was in there. I was in denial that this happened for that 1 hour. And what we did was we said, okay, I'm gonna break up the day into 6 hours. I just gotta make it 6 hours with the pain. And then I'd reset the clock myself, just okay, mentally. And then the other agreement my daughters and I had was that I could cry once a day, no more. Okay, so because it was really bad, and so that's what I held myself to, and my kids were there to help me, and eventually they figured out how to get me walking. Thank God.
so that's yeah, just the mental fortitude here. I'm trying to take that in, right? Right. And then you got your girls, which I'm sure it's not easy for them to see their dad laying like that, but also giving you strength at the same time, and having this taking these little bites one at a time. Um, you know, we that's a life lesson in itself. Just to, uh, you don't look at the big picture. You work these hours by hours, right? Seconds by seconds, and that's how change happens. So, I'm a big proponent of that anyway. So that I think that is just that's a powerful. That's pretty powerful. I need to wrap my head around that a little bit. That was something good. You and I'll speak about that again
Yeah,
privately. I
that's
think once
that that's that's
I
a
have to roll
that's
that around in my own head for a minute.
yeah, it's like I'm like an achiever, like, right? But in this case, I just knew like trying to brush my own teeth in the hospital bed. Like my arms didn't work, and if I moved, it hurt. Like it hurt really bad. Like you just start crying because of the pain. It's suffering, right? But I was brushing my teeth like, little 3-year-old brushes their teeth. They just kind of like rubbing their arm around in their face, That's what I was doing. But I was committed. Okay, each day you're gonna brush your own teeth. That's a step. And everything just built on that. And then doing just fist clenches in the bed because that's all I could do.
So, would you say recovery was a scary thing in your mind, or were you anticipating your recovery so you can get to work? What did
It
that look
was
like?
it was really, really scary. The first 6 months, I was told, "You can't bend, lift, or twist. That's it. You can't bend your body. Don't lift anything more than a gallon of milk," which was impossible. There's no way I'd be able to lift a gallon of milk. Um, and don't twist your body, and don't fall. Like, if you fall, this can all rupture because it's, like, just been put together. So, when you are told that, you knowing you fall, you may go catastrophic. Like, that's a
Mm.
simple thing to do, right? So, I had to be really cautious. So I started slow walks with a walker. I was with a walker, had a neck brace for a while, and every doctor, I have some friends that are PT, and nobody knew what the end game could be. Yeah, like, to put it in perspective, the first time or second time I went to PT, I asked my physical therapist, who I'm still in contact with today. I had many of them, but the first one, and I said, when can I expect, like, to kind of be a little bit normal? She said, well, we don't know. I don't know if it was her or this other guy. I said, what do you mean you don't know? They said, well, people don't walk in here with your injuries the way you did it. They just don't. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I had zero forecast in my head of what was possible. The only thing that was forecast in my head was, whatever you do today, tomorrow has to be a little bit more. So at first it was 20 steps. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try to go 40 steps today. And I just started like that.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I understand that mental fortitude that you have. I remember when my knee was replaced and they told me the same thing. They said that you cannot, if you want to leave the hospital, you got to walk 100 steps. And I said, okay, well, then let's just do that right now. Let's just do the 100 steps right now. And I did it. I walked down that hallway the morning after surgery. And I said, okay, I did the 100 steps. Do I get to go home? And they said, no, because most people don't do the 100 steps in the first thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember laying in bed, not to the extent of your injuries, but the same thing, that my life's going to be a little bit different now. And am I going to be able to kick again? Am I going to be able to do this stuff again when I had this knee replacement? And so I respect that mental fortitude that you had. And well, how did you get yourself, going to start figure out, okay, this is what my life's going to be when we're able to walk? I mean, was that your mindset?
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to go. What's it going to look like?
So the initial thing, my very first thing when I went to PT, the physical therapist was like, okay, what were your activities before? What do you hope your activities to be after? And they're really trying to gauge your mental awareness to, like, what's going on, right? And I explained the stuff in the beginning of, like, what I did pre. And then I said, I'm good with anything at this point because I'm just happy to be alive, right? But
Mhm.
then I just wanted to be able to walk and be a quote average person. I want to be able to eventually drive. I want to be able to eventually s- drive to the edge of the Grand Canyon and look at it. I want to be able to pull up to a beach and maybe walk on a beach. Very, very simple. I just wanted to be functioning. But to get myself going on that, what I did was I just kept pushing myself. One of my best friends is an emergency room doctor. His wife is a PT. All the PTs, all my friends. I just started pushing my walker, and I don't know why I did that. I just needed to kind of keep myself busy. I think because of the trauma and the shock. I'm still in shock. At this point, I didn't realize I also had a brain injury. undiagnosed, but definitely had it. Speech was different coming out with certain things. And so I just kept pushing the walker, and I hooked this little bag on the front of my walker, and I put some muscle milk in there, and I had my phone in case I needed it while I had the neck brace on. So I'm pushing this walker with a neck brace on because the walker gave me safety, but it also gave me the ability to go further and see the beach more and see the palm trees and see things like I'm like, wow, this is like I'm starting to see the world. And this is a little bit, I don't know why I did this. I just kept going for it with the walker. I used to do Ironman triathlon, so I'm used to kind of pushing my body. But I ended up pushing that walker 8 miles wearing a neck brace, and it took me over 3 hours. And it was I'd have to stop, breathe through the pain, but I felt really good when I was able to progress and progress and progress. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually starting to see light and at this point, I'm starting to see the light that I might have a normal life, just an average, not so active life, but just a normal life. I'd be able to fly to Texas, see my girls, drive a car, hang out with them, and that was it. Nothing active, but just regular, if you will.
So what was that? So what was it mentally like? I guess I'm trying to put myself in that thing because I guess being told that you're not going to be able to walk, I guess what is the feeling like when you were at least pushing the walker? Were you like, okay, I got past this stage of them saying I will not walk. I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's a good question. So mentally, I was like, I can do this, and I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody. Like I'll prove them wrong. There was none of that because I'm basically trying to gain my life, right?
Mhm.
Mentally, I was scared. Half the time I pushed the walker, I'd stop. The pain, either the pain or the realization that I lived, and I just have tears. I'd just be walking, just all of a sudden my eyes would well up. And I didn't know why. Obviously, it's a trauma and stuff like that. And part of it's a trauma of being thankful that I lived, being thankful my arms worked, thankful my legs worked. And so mentally, it was very lonely. Like when the physical therapist, nobody knows what your outcome can be. Like there's no playbook. And then they're like, okay, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And then I would meet with my physical therapist and say, hey, this is what I did. They're like, okay, we're going to do some more exercises with resistance bands. And after 3 months, I was able to lift my arm. So like, you have your arm and you just kind of lift it up to your side like this. I can't see it on the camera, but when you're standing there, just do your arm and raise it up to your side. It
Right.
took
Yes.
3 months to get my left arm up, and that
3
was
months to. Yeah, so we're going through these events, and I don't think we have a real perspective on what this is like. Give me this timeline first, so I can get a better perspective in my mind. Did you? How long were you in the hospital
okay.
before real PT was getting ready to rock and roll?
Okay, so I was in the hospital about 2 weeks in ICU, and I was in neurological center. Started walking. They got me out a couple days after that.
Uh huh.
Um, then I got home, and then they're like, "Look, you can't start PT for a good like 6 to 8 weeks when the neck brace comes off." Like, okay. So then 6 to 8 weeks, the neck brace comes off, but they said I could walk with the walker for those 6 to 8 weeks.
So you're at home right now. Who's helping you at home? Did your daughter stay or?
My daughters got back to Texas. At first I had a girlfriend, the girl I was dating at the time, I was at her house for a while. Then I transitioned to my place, my apartment here in Ventura. And fortunately, my friend that's a doctor and his wife is a physical therapist live 2 doors down. So they just come
Ah.
over every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a lot of medical advocacy in my pocket for sure. Um, so now I'm just out walking on the promenade here, which is pretty safe overall because I'm not
Right.
worrying about curbs and stuff like that. I just hugged the wall so I didn't get clipped by a bike or something like that. And I could go out there and just walk as much as I wanted with this walker, with the neck brace. And that's what I did. I just trolled around town on my walker.
So after surgery, you're in ICU for a couple weeks, and they sent you kind of home. relatively right after that. Is that correct? To
Yep.
start this healing process.
Yep. And then it was 6 weeks
And
of
so,
6
so
weeks of
six,
chill, just walk,
right.
then
Uh,
physical therapy started, and then I at this point, I'm talking to my doctor trying to understand my injuries because I still didn't understand the injuries, and that's when it started sinking in of, "Wow, I really got lucky here."
that is so that probably is your mindset as you're going through PT now at this point, right? And how long was that portion? So we were in the hospital 6 to 8 weeks. Then PT starts. How long did you have somebody? Were they coming to your house and working with you? Is that what was happening?
If they sent that started in the beginning, but then they realized like, hey, this guy's really kind of pushing the boundaries on his own to some degree. So like, nope, you can go to regular PT. So I went to several variations of physical therapy. I have Kaiser for insurance, so I went there, and this lady Katie is an excellent PT. She's my physical therapist, and then she went and had a baby. So then there's Jared, and um, regular PT gets you regular stuff, and everybody was doing their job, and I was like, I need more, and I'm not at the level I need to be, and there's kind of a cap with basic PT. So then I started going to PT in Studio City. My friends helped me research like advanced PT, especially with neurological spinal injuries and the extent of mine, like my entire neck. Like still my body didn't really twist. My neck was atrophied. It was getting there, but it's a slow process. So I would drive 2 days a week from after I did the regular PT, which was several times a week. Then I did it every single day at home
So,
myself.
so how long before you could drive then if you're in PT? How long did that allow?
That was several months, and I probably shouldn't have been
So
driving at the time
you
anyway. I'm doing the shoulder turn, hoping like, "Oh my god, I hope
right.
I don't."
I was
I would find
I was told
roads.
the yeah, I was told the same thing, and I was driving the next day, and they were just having a conniption fit.
Yeah, I was going to roads that had red lights because that way you don't need to look and go. It's like green, okay, it's good for me, right?
Yeah.
And then so it was several months. I would just do Uber or people would drive me to PT. And then I started driving. I found the advanced PT after about 6 months, I'd say, in Studio City, this place called Core Conditioning, exceptional, and they have a whole neurological setup there. So I was driving from Ventura to Studio City twice a week, and it's 55 miles each way out of pocket because that's what I needed to get where I wanted to be. In my
Mhm.
entire physical therapy, it's 14 months, and I did it at the PT centers and at home pretty much every single day.
Every day. That was a workout for you.
That was work. Yep.
Okay. So then I don't know. I take it as now. I don't know. Did you go through several PTs or did you have some really good ones? Because my first few, it was like, "Hey, listen, you need to push the boundaries a little bit more. I'm not, ride the bike for 3 minutes or something like that." I'm like, "You're gonna have to push me a little bit more." Did you have to go through several? Or did you happen to get lucky and get one that was really
I got
pushing you?
lucky. Yeah, I got and that's true. It's like finding, a good counselor or a good doctor, or you gotta do your homework. So the first couple I had were good, and then when I showed up and when the PT said, "Hey, what do you wanna work on today?" That's when I knew I kinda maxed this place out. Then when I went to Studio City, I worked with this lady, Megan Bishop, who's exceptional PT. Um, I knew that was next level, and as soon as I left, like an hour of what she did neurologically for my neck was amazing. I could actually start to turn my neck because before it'd say turn your neck and I'd go like that. They're like, no, turn your neck. I'm like, okay. And they're like, but you didn't turn it. I'm like, well, I did, right? And so she got movement in my neck to where I can do that. Whereas before it didn't move. So after 1 hour, I just drove home in tears because I have, an hour and a half drive back because I knew this was going to get me more than what I had. Again, nobody knows the end game because there is no playbook. But I am like, okay, this is going to help me.
So what was the motivation then to get yourself through, especially if there was no conclusion on what you're going to be able to do. So how did you motivate yourself to continue on, or is it just inch by inch, life's a cinch, yard by yard, life is hard?
It's pretty much what you said. It's if you get you have to be patient, which I'm not the most patient person in the world. This taught me extreme patience. Surfing bigger waves taught me patience. Like if you want to be eager, you might get burned, and I did a few times. This was inch by inch because as long as I improved, I was good. I didn't care.
Mhm.
As long as I improved, I was good. And I drove to I and then, when COVID hit, they shut down, and she agreed to do video PT with me. So she would demonstrate stuff, and we had the shared video thing on the Apple app. And then I would demonstrate it here, and she would like evaluate me. And when we have consults, then that's how I continued the PT. And then as soon as they opened back up, I was right back there. And next thing, what happened was I said, "Hey, I want to do." I said like I was performing pretty well, and she said, "Okay, um, you said you wanted to have a really active life." She goes, "Rich, I think you're there. You can do all this stuff at home." She said, "You're there." And I kind of paused, like I finished it. And I went out to my car and I sat there, and I don't know how to describe it. It's just this shock and belief that you're done. Like the tough stuff, the painful stuff is mostly behind you. And it's very emotional for me, and I was just so grateful. And then I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so now I can continue doing what she taught me at home. I can advance it. Like I was doing 1 pound weights after 8 months. I was lifting a 1 pound weight. I'm like, okay, now I can go to a 3 pound weight. Now I'm doing 25s, sometimes 30 when I feel aggressive. um,
Mhm.
and I just kind of went from there. And I had nothing to lose by not continuing, but I don't want to be stable and just, oh, this is good enough. Good enough's never good for me. It's sometimes it is, but when it comes to your entire life, no way. I want to milk it for all I can.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's I mean the mental fortitude that it takes to go through that. But then again, when you listen to that, you're a triathlete and and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, quit's just not an option. You know what I mean? I just if you and you can speak to anybody that's gone through super traumatic things that they overcome. The quit was not an option for them. They just they hunker down and do what needs to be done, and it's just that. I don't know if you know this, but Jay Walker, the one in Simi Valley that runs my school in Simi, this is what he is. He's one of these very traumatic PT. That's what he does during the day, and he'll listen to this podcast, and he's that kind of PT you'd want. The one that's going to push you to what you want to do. So, I didn't know if you know that about Jay or not.
No, I didn't. So Jay, if you're
So,
listening, C3 to T2
yeah.
destroyed.
Yeah, he'll comment back on this. He's probably at work right now, but he will do a replay listen. So, all right, so we got into that. Like I told you, man, this hour is going to fly by. Right, we're
Mhm.
at 38 minutes already, and just listening to the story, and then of course the pandemic happens, and you're right in the middle of all this, trying to get this thing healed at the same time as that. So it's just but I will say, if you had to drive, it was much nicer to drive through the pandemic on
Yeah.
the freeway than it was now. I can tell you that.
There was no traffic, and thankfully,
That's right.
I bought a lot of the equipment I needed at home. I
Uh-huh.
bought it before the pandemic when you couldn't get the stuff, right? Like
That's
resistance bands and
right.
TRX straps, and so I
Yeah.
I had kind of a home setup. But I will say, at one point, I did PT at home 60 days in a row for 2 hours, and the 2 hours was trying to lift your arm. Try to
Mhm.
do a resistance band like this just a little bit. It wasn't heavy duty stuff, but for me, it was
But for you,
like
that was heavy duty, right?
that was
So
heavy
it
duty.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so, I and I don't the other thing is driving. So how did mentally did you drive not worrying about getting in an accident?
I just skipped that. I just mentally just let that fly over my head. I was
You
like,
just
okay,
didn't. Yeah, that just wasn't a thought process.
I can't
That's good.
control that. I can't control that whatsoever. And if I get in an accident, I made sure the headrest was up high enough so you get less of a
A
head
head thing.
snap.
Yeah.
But I just like, if somebody creams you at this point, whatever.
Okay, well, let's get into then. Then you decide that you're going to do this martial arts thing. So, what prompted you to look into martial arts? Given you that the neck is titanium and you are what would you call normal for your circumstance, right?
Yeah. So I had two fears, right? Fear of a fall, right? And what if some dude were to come up and grab me by the neck? So my neck turns, you can see it kind of stops here. So I don't call it a disability. I'm not disabled. I have a restriction, right? If somebody were to grab me, it'd be really bad for me and I would have a disadvantage. So I was like, okay, I'm going to learn. I talked to my buddy and he used to compete nationally in Taekwondo. And I'm like, I'm going to go and figure out some martial arts that would teach me how to fall. So I just Googled and I called Robert up in Ventura. And I had no idea what Krav Maga was. I didn't know what it was. And I just called him and said, hey, look, I want to learn how to fall properly. And I want to learn how to defend myself with my neck restriction. And he was like, okay, I can help you with that. And, he explained some basic things. And then I sent him a picture of my x-ray, which is pretty scary. And I think he was like, hey, hold on, we got to be really, really careful with this as we went through it. And he was like kind of scared to do stuff. And I was scared to do stuff. Right. So we did private lessons because that was the safest thing for sure. And I really liked him. You could tell he's a really good human being and he genuinely cared to try to help me. And he modified things to where it would work for my neck and my mental state, right? And we practice on falls and we practice how we do this. Okay, with your neck, you can kind of do this instead. And it's been really, it took away that fear I had of a fall. Like if I trip and fall, I have fallen, right? But if I fall, I want it to be less of a fall than before I went into his studio. And I absolutely have that now. So I mentally feel safer because I know I can trip and fall and at least try to react better than walking in the studio.
Well, you don't. Robbie is probably out of all the black belts, all the school owners and stuff like that. There's not another one that falls as well as that kid does. So that's one thing that kid knows how to do. Is that. So you were in, and you're right about that. He's he's a genuine guy. So you picked up the right phone and you called the right guy to get this going, right? And so it really wasn't going to class per se, right? It was going to do private lessons, is what you were doing, correct?
Yes, I was going to private lessons and he has on his wall there, he has all the belts like tacked up on the wall in the studio. And I said, look, I'm not interested in any of that stuff. Like I just want to be safer for my existence, right? I want to learn how to fall properly. And if some dude were to come at me and go for my neck, I have to protect that. Because if somebody puts me in a headlock and twists and rips me down, I'll probably be dead. I'll just be dead. There's nothing to hold the bones. I mean, the titanium's just gonna rip, and then that's it. So that's why I went. But then he kept feeding me, and he kept feeding me. He's like, you
Uh-huh.
should get these gloves. You should learn how to punch. You should do this. Here's some defense in case somebody does before they go for your neck. And it just kind of started rolling from there.
So then, because what you told me is he called me about this, right? And then he called me about doing a private test with you, right? And
Yeah.
then we had a conversation. I had a conversation, and of course we'll that's the beauty of Krav. Krav is supposed to be around what you can do physically. You know what I mean? What is Krav Maga is this big, like this big martial arts. Your Krav Maga is this big. I mean, this is true for all martial arts, not just you. It's like even jujitsu. Jujitsu is this big thing of techniques, and your jujitsu is this big. your Krav Maga is this big, right? And on what you can do and what you do well, and that's what you develop, and that's what becomes yours out of it. Okay, so we did this private test together, so I got to be part of that with you, and we did this private test. Robbie came down to be your partner, and you know, so you went from I wasn't interested in all that, and so what pushes you to continue then after you did a test? What's pushing you forward now?
There's several things. It's interesting how things happen. I go to learn how to fall, and like I love it. I keep advancing. It kind of goes back to my recovery story. Okay, I keep advancing. So when I was just training with Robbie, I call it training. I was like, okay, just getting more self defense and more confidence in myself. And then I started looking at the cauldron. I started looking at the curriculum. I was like, I'm fairly close except for some of these things. And even the sprawl, I was mixing up a sprawl. So this will scare you and it scares me. I thought the sprawl was you stand up like a totem pole and you just fall forward and catch yourself. So I was doing that on a mat. And finally I was like, hey man, this is too dangerous for me. I can't do it. And he's like, no, don't do that. Right. So I was basically doing timber of my whole body and trying to break it. Right. He goes, no, don't do that. Right. So we modified it. And then he goes, you could actually test. There's like one or two things you will struggle with because of your neck, but we should give it a shot. So I went up to this, when you guys are doing testing one time in Simi, I went up and I watched and I saw everybody kind of pretty close quarters on the ground, stepping around each other. I was like, there's no way. It's just too dangerous. Somebody falls and gets a knee on my neck. That's it. So I said, you know what? Let's schedule it. And I said, the great thing, and I remember you were there telling people, hey, if your partner's letting you get away with something because the instructor's walking around, don't see it, you guys still see it, right? So I told Robert, I said, if you're holding the pads and Mr. Cox is standing there, there's no hiding anything. There's no deficiency. Like if I'm going to make a mistake of moving my pinky, one of you two is going to find out. So it's total under the microscope. And I said, this needs to be as real as it can. And that's what I did. I was super nervous when I went up there too. I wasn't nervous about testing. I was nervous about making sure I performed well for Robert because he's basically putting his name behind it, when we went up there. And since then, I was like, I've got more and more capabilities. And just recently, I've been going to regular classes with other people, which is a really big thing for me.
That's a major thing. And I'm sure people in class want to make sure that, we would protect all them anyway, from that, but you're going to have a class that's going to rally around you and probably be an inspiration to those that, I'd use you all the time. Every time somebody wants to be some lazy ass in class, I can guarantee you, I would talk about Rich. And I said, this is hard for you, but what has he gone through? You know what I mean? I would use it all the time. And so, that means, so we're basically, what, are you 6 months into this now? 6 months into training, right?
Yeah, about 6 or 7. And it was funny. I went the other night and this girl's there and she's yellow belt as well. And she goes, hi. She goes, I go, yeah, I've been training with Robert for a while. And she's like, how come I haven't seen you? Right? Because I've been hiding in the safe morning class and I've been hiding with private lessons. And finally, I feel confident with my skills to attend. And then a couple of the guys I met know the story. They don't know the whole story, but they're like, okay, we got to be careful with Rich's neck. But it's interesting how trauma comes back. So as I was driving a class last week. It was weird. I just had this realization. You're driving to a normal Krav Maga class. You're just driving there. You're going to be a regular student. So I started getting, I almost turned around. I walked in the studio and I just gave Robert a hug and I was like, hey, thank you for your interest in me for helping my life, because I have safety in my brain now. Safety of a fall, safety if somebody comes at me. And then that night it was headlocks and stuff like that. And everything was like, okay, everybody do this except for Rich, you're going to do this. Everybody do this. And when you do the triangle, he goes, Rich, he goes, okay, you guys, this is what you're going to practice except for Rich. He's pointing at me like, You don't even need to say it, man, because I am not doing that. But
Right. I think that your Krav Maga, Rich, is going to be, I tell everybody when it comes to self defense, you have stages of self defense. You have stages of complete awareness where it will never come to you. The attack will never come to you. The next one is it's gone to the next level where now your heart's beating and it's like they're almost going to put hands on you. Right.
mhm,
And there's a defense that needs to happen. The next one is like where something's actually on you, right?
mhm,
And then you're defending that. The next is in the worst possible scenario. And a lot of times in class, we train the worst possible scenario where somebody's already led. You need to train in number 1 and 2 quadrant where you're
mhm.
hyper aware. And if somebody steps into that zone, they're going to pay the price before they can touch you. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And so that I think that is that's to me that's probably where you're going to be as far as that goes. So, you know, that's probably what you get out of the coaching and the skills, I'm sure. I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that, but um you know, they're gonna everybody's gonna everybody will be hypersensitive to make sure. I don't know if I told you the story that my workout partner, his name's Fred Hogg, before he moved to Texas, is what he did. He was my workout partner, and the thing about him is he had numbness in his hand one night. It was on a Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact. It was that's my girlfriend's birthday and stuff. So we were out to dinner with a group of friends celebrating her birthday, and we had a doctor there that night, a good friend of mine. That's a neural and pain doctor. And Fred was telling him, "Hey, my hand's always numb." You know what I mean? And he goes, "Well, that's not good." And when he brought him in, he had to have a neck thing. Like
Mhm.
he told him, he goes, "If Mr. Cox would have wrenched on you too hard and stuff like that, you could have been in paralysis."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think about this all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have put my best workout partner,
Mhm,
friend at that time, in a wheelchair. And so we know the sensitivity that goes with it, and as coaches, we want to see as coaches, it over time, we your martial arts has to be what your martial is for you, for what it is for you. And, I don't know if you know Jean-Jacques, but in jiu-jitsu world, Jean-Jacques Machado, he's got one arm that's kind of deformed, and he is a world champion Brazilian jiu-jitsu
yeah.
practitioner. And he's just taken what he has and put it into that world. And so, I'm not surprised. We hear a lot of times that people, are a little bit miffed to testing, but I think, it's a big thing, right? In your mind, you're thinking, how can I do all this stuff? And then as you bite it off one step at a time, you make that
Mhm.
you make that choice to do it. So
And
I mean, to,
I didn't kinda I didn't and I totally agree with what you're saying. I like the segments of the Krav, I'm pretty street smart, Um, but what I found was a lot of my fear of what I can do in Krav has been eliminated. And I'd say at this point, like actually I have it right here. So like I kind of printed out like the whole testing thing for Orange and
right.
what I'm weak at, what I need to practice, some notes. Like I have it pretty dialed in. Um, like I've done. So you think of like a restriction. Okay, so I've done the cauldron, various cauldrons, orange, green, yellow, pretty green. I've done them probably 9 times out of the last 12 days. Like I have a place I can go do it. And so the groundwork is what I have to work on with Robert. And as I looked at the entire curriculum, probably 5 things, 4 to 5 things we got to be a little bit careful of.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest, but I also love it, Mark. I
Uh-huh.
love it. I love the energy of the class. I was like yesterday, I was like, I'm feeling lazy. I don't feel like it. It's hot here. I'm like, you know what? Go to this place. We call it the prison yard, right? So we've got an outdoor area with barbed
You
wire fence around it,
Yeah, you told me about
right?
this.
So I go to the prison yard, and there's, and I'm in a fenced-in area with barbed wire, and a lot of the vagrants are around. They don't mess with that area though. They see what's going on inside there. But I did it, and I was drenched with sweat. I was like almost puking. I puke almost every time I do it. And I was like, I feel great. So I really love Krav now. I didn't even know what it was. I went to learn how to fall. Now we're really ramping up to give you a phone call saying, hey, probably several weeks away at least, say, hey, this guy wants to roll up there again and get put under the microscope.
Yeah, I'll be there for it. We'll be ready for you too. We'll you know, we'll keep on trucking for sure. So, if you could change things that you didn't have the accident, would you change it?
No. And people think I'm a liar when I say that. Like, if I didn't have to change, if I couldn't have the accident, would I pull that off? No. This accident has done way more good than bad. Now, that's easy to say because I'm not a quadriplegic and I'm not because that's my best case, right? It's easy to say now, but I suffered a lot. But I also learned a lot. And through this story, it's not really me, it's just the story, right? Through this story, I definitely know it has helped people. People have contacted me directly saying, hey, look, I was in this like really bad spot. I listened to some of your podcasts. I watched some of your video stuff. And I'm really happy that you shared your story because it's helped me. So overall, it's definitely reset things in my life, and it let me know where I was. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that any kind of human interest story where somebody beats the odds, it it's the connection that we all have together that uh, man, if he can pull through, I can pull through.
mhm.
If you know, even in my own life, I've done the same thing on certain things for myself, but watching somebody else go through it and say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it. So I think that your story that way is commendable for sure. So, well, listen, so we're wrapping up on this on an hour already. I want to give you this stage, and I want you to tell me or tell the audience too on what do you want to see people take away from your story, from what you've done. Let's end with you giving that perspective on what you'd like to see.
Yeah, like why am I doing this podcast? Why have I done my own podcast and my website and stuff like that? I think we limit ourselves at times and we just need a boost. Like through my whole journey, I needed guides. I needed help. I needed Robert. I needed my physical therapist. I need my buddies. I need my friend that's a doctor. I needed so much help. And knowing that you can't do it all on your own is big, right? But knowing
Right.
if you put your mind to it, like I couldn't walk. I could only squeeze my hands. And then I did a lot in my recovery. And so if you break it up into small pieces, it's actually doable. And the final thing I think of is I went to Krav to learn how to fall and learn how to like quickly defend myself in a bad situation. Probably not to the level most people would go to. Um, but I actually found passion in something I love that led to me eventually, like this fall, taking an EMT class. That was actually part of the whole thing. And so if you don't keep testing the waters and don't keep pushing yourself with help, you may be missing out and you may be cheating yourself. So just don't do that. Just kind of grind it out a little bit and don't give up.
Oh, so you talked about your website. Let's talk about what your website consists of and how can people come and see it, find it.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. So my website is richhasfun.com. And that's a lot of the story. So richhasfun.com. That's a lot of the story. And I talk specifically on there about what happened, some news articles. It's more like inspirational stuff. And especially quitting the pain meds. What I did to quit the pain meds is I wrote that all out. I've got a YouTube thing, which I'm just getting rolling. Rich Has Fun. And then the podcast, which I've gotten a lot of really, really good feedback on that, is Experience Rich. And there's pictures of my neck and the incidents and my recovery on pretty much all of it. I just want my gift of living to help other people. That's my give back with all this stuff.
So I'm just going to throw this out now that I'm sure Robbie's still listening because he's been listening to the entire time. So I think your next step after orange belt testing is to look into what it's going to look like to go through instructor training and become um, this next level, because you're going to relate to a lot of people that have either disabilities or they have fear, right? I've experienced all this stuff and myself with students, and I think that's your journey to. I mean, you got the website, right? You have
Hmm.
fun. Yep. See, Robbie just said the saying. I told him that too, right? Robbie's already told you this, I guess, huh? I told him that he's going to be able to help so many people. I think that, to me, that's your next step. And because I think I asked you if you've written a book, but you said you just haven't had time, and that's not something you've done just yet. And to put down your legacy, I would encourage you to do that, because to put down your legacy for, can you imagine your grandchildren and great grandchildren to know what kind of a warrior their grandfather was, is going to be, generational, so
Yeah.
I would encourage you to start thinking on those lines, and we'll talk about it more on your next orange belt test about what that's going to look like. um, I think that you're going to get older people that come into class, and they're going to be, because it happens here all the time, and I've got a gentleman here that I have work with him all the time, older guys. I mean, how old are you now?
I'm 56.
So you're 56, and traumatic experience, and you're in there doing it, right? I'm just
Yeah.
a little bit older than you, so um, you know, it, just getting people 50 to 60 to continue onto something, because a lot of them look at Krav Maga and say, "You got to be kidding me with this," right? There's just like intense workouts and stuff like that. But Krav Maga can be for everybody, so I think that there's room for that. So I would encourage you to talk to Robbie about that, and start looking in that direction, and start becoming what that's going to be like. So I think that we covered this in an hour, and I think people are going to get a good takeaway from this. I'll have the audio portion of this out. I believe, if you haven't, Rich, I don't know, did you put all your information when you did the intake form? Did you put all your information on
Yes.
how to come and see you and stuff in there?
Yes.
Because when I publish this on my website, the audio portion then of the podcast, there's notes and stuff that people can go and check
Okay.
your website out. I'll make sure it has it all on there, but
Thank you.
um, I think that this has been this has been good, man. This has been an awesome time to spend with you. Definitely, you know, what's your faith like?
I'm pretty neutral. I'm mostly Buddhist. I'm like, just
Uh-huh.
be a good human and give to others. Don't worry
Mhm.
about the rest. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of go there. I grew up Catholic, and that didn't work for me. So I just kind of roll along the Buddhist way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're definitely just a generally good guy, but people that go through trauma like this, they have a big respect for life, and they take extreme ownership, and I think it's hard when you see others don't take an extreme ownership when you had to go through what you had to go through. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
been great. I look forward to it. We'll be able to see each other in a few weeks, I guess. Is that what we're
Hopefully,
gonna
yeah.
do?
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll keep
Yeah.
hitting it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. February, I'm pretty booked, but maybe in March I can come out there on one of these nights. I'll let you know when I'm coming, and I'll hop on the mat out there in Ventura and teach a class. And yeah, it'd be an honor to teach a class that you're in.
Thanks.
Sound good?
Sounds great. And let me
Okay.
just say this: hearing you say that, I'm getting fairly confident with the orange belt test, but hearing you say I should consider instructor school, like that almost numbed my body to think
Mm.
of where I was, and then this is a consideration. Like I just feel beyond blessed, and it just goes to show you, like for people listening, you step in to do something, you never know what the output is, and just go try stuff, and
Yeah. It's beautiful. I think we'll end on that. I think that's a good ending, Rich. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more online today, and I'll have this audio podcast out by end of day. All right, and you can share it
Awesome.
on your platform. Sound good?
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Mark. It's
All
great
right,
chat,
man.
and thank you everybody for listening. All right, have a
All
good day.
right. Have a good day.
All
Bye,
right, bye.
Rich.